Today we're designing a sword around the theme Smoke for Swordtember. My 3D skills are stronger than my 2D skills, so we're going to be doing this in Blender. If you don't know what Swordtember is, every day for the month of September we get a new theme and we have to design a sword concept art around it. I'll put the list up here that I'm using. And just like Inktober in October, Swordtember in September requires daily commitment, and I can only put so much time towards this. So if you see anything in the list that you would like me to produce, I'll make it a priority. Otherwise, I'll just pick and choose and build these as I go. I find these prompts really interesting just because it's forced me to produce something that I wouldn't have considered otherwise. Like today, right? To make a sword that's themed around smoke, I might have gotten to at some point, but certainly not now or this week. I really enjoy seeing the art community come alive when these art challenges pop up. It really gets people kind of collaborating in some ways or communicating about a central theme beyond what the daily prompt is. It's just to see the same people share and post at the same time and comment on each other, almost as if we were in the same room, sharing our little sketchbooks together. So for today's theme of smoke, I was first thinking about smokestacks and how they would pillar up into what could be a blade of some sort. And that got me thinking about, well, what other things would kind of represent that as a blade? And I think the closest we have currently in terms of concepts is a lightsaber. So how would I make a medieval lightsaber in some ways? Well, I took the concept of like a dungeon torch or a medieval torch, and then the flame that sits in the torch is rested within the torch, and then the stack that comes off of that is essentially what the lightsaber is. Lately, a lot of the like pop culture or more modern lightsabers feel very like goopy or vaporous. Vaporous a word? I don't know. But they have a lot of just this like light fluffiness to them that's beyond just the blade. I think in some ways that vapor that comes off of lightsabers, or at least red lightsabers, is supposed to be like this like raw intensity. And then you compare that to like the Jedi's lightsaber, which in some ways are a lot more refined, and then the light's a lot more focused. It's supposed to show this like pristine, if you will. But I'm not really about that. I like that in some things, but for the most part, I'm a pretty big fan of like Doom. And I think a lot of that shows up in my fantasy or medieval styles of things. I like a lot of heavy rivets and just these like hard shapes. Here I'm trying to give the illusion that this handle is wrapped by some kind of leather or fabric, and it's creating this overlap. So I'm trying to create some creases to create some kind of thickness when I go to paint it. And then of course you need to add some sort of tear, because if this is some kind of super legendary item or whatever, it probably has some wear in it, and of course some thickness, because everything has volume. If you want to see more stuff like this, I have a series out on my channel called the Primeval Codex. It's kind of like a Nat Geo for fantasy and folklore, where we tell stories about a lot of the creatures that you might like and a lot of these fantasy items and the stories that come with them. Much of what I am trying to do on this channel is tell things in the vein of a campfire story. These stories are written in a way that they are first-hand encounters from those who've experienced these things. And if you stick around to the end of this video, you'll hear the entry that we have on this weapon. Along with these individual themes, I try to think of what the overall theme was for these 30 swords why there would be a collection logically within my fictional space. So I came up with something called the Vault of Swords. And if you're interested in that, please tell me about it below, so that I can continue to make these. And if I find that there's enough interest around them, then I will definitely prioritize these to tell that story. Looking at the list of themes again, I like the idea that all 30 of these have an equal importance. If you wanted to compare some of these things together, like woven and jeweled, you're telling me that these two items are of equal importance, and it's like, why? What do they do that make them of equal caliber? What about a floral sword that makes it so threatening compared to a necromancer sword or a bone tooth sword? In my mind, I am understanding them as that these items are all equally legendary. Now it's time to work backwards to make them legendary. Jumping back to the model here, what I'm doing with the paint is I'm trying to add details to the iron or steel to give it some kind of discoloration from when heat tempers the metal. So I'm working my way up from ranges of the standard steel color, which is this like greenish hue, green gray, then going to purple or blue purple, the reds and orange, and then finally a passive yellow to show like the most tempered areas. And I do that to the insides quite a bit on these like rib areas, just to show that like that there's these flare-ups that could be happening that kind of superheat these like thick plates. And you'll see that somewhere right here where I'm doing these little thin wall panels that would probably have a lot of heat that escape through these vents. And of course the exposed center bar, and of course not much in terms of the handle, seeing that that might be solid iron. But I will grease it up, and you'll see me just do this kind of final dirt pass, if you will. Just anywhere where the grooves might catch some dirt or where some grime lingers on this item. And once I'm done here with the metal, I'll be doing a similar treatment to the wrap, the handle area of this weapon. If you like this video and you want to see more, please consider subscribing, because I have a ton of these that I've written, and more will definitely be coming soon. Without further delay, let's get on to the final looks. Once ignited, it continuously smolders. The bearer of this weapon gains the ability to see haunting creatures, typically hidden from the average mortal. Demons, ghosts, and horrors that creep beyond the veil. It is believed that prolonged exposure to the torch will present and veer travelers down secret paths along the shadow plane, routes not meant for the living.